The Sims 3 had a lot of traits after all the expansion packs. Some were good, some not so much. Some of my favourites were never new because I'm a fan of Arrested Development. Hydrophobic was another favourite of mine, but it was only to make hydrophobic Sims go swimming because I thought that was funny. And kleptomaniac because it's a funny trait, no other reason. The traits all did things, either reflected in the Sims' actions or in conversation, similar to perk dialogue options in Fallout games. Following the success of my previous Sims 3 video, it seems silly not to give the people what they want, and to do another Sims 3 video. But do not worry, there will be other content for you coming soon. More Planet Zoo, other Sims games. And I'm currently brainstorming for my Halloween video. Let me know if you have any ideas you'd like to see. I'm still very new to this, and I'm excited to make lots of videos for you all. Hi, this is Crunchblaw. You may remember him from his previous Sims video. I've decided to give him as many bad traits as I can in The Sims 3 to see if he can be a functioning member of society by achieving his lifetime aspiration, being super popular and having 20 friends. As an introvert, this seems exhausting, but if that's what he wants, that's what he wants. Out of the many traits I could have given him, I've chosen loser, unlucky, no sense of humour, coward, and hydrophobic because I'm a cruel and twisted Sims player. I wanted to give him a houseboat, but after about half an hour of unsuccessfully placing a port in a non-island paradise neighbourhood, I admitted defeat, simply just placed a house around water. So we were still torturing this poor man, for no real reason. Placing it completely ruined the ocean, but at least he had a place to live. We're playing in Sunlit Tides, a downloadable neighbourhood I owned because I wanted to be surrounded by water because of his hydrophobic trait, but didn't want to play in Isla Paradiso because it doesn't particularly run very well. If you know, you know. So Sunlit Tides was the best of both worlds. We're not just going to have the 20 friends required for his aspiration. I'm aiming for as many friends I can make as possible in one sim year. Similar to the homeless challenge, summer to summer. We headed to the park to make a start on those 20 friends we craved so much, and bored a man to sleep almost instantly upon arrival. We chatted with a few Sims in the area, but they weren't particularly interested in chatting to poor Crunch. Crunch isn't very perceptive, and asked a police officer what her job was. It was police officer. At this stage, it had become very late, so Crunch headed back home. Nothing left to do today. Go to bed. Because of Crunch's unlucky and loser traits, I expected there to be a fire or burglar, but neither of those things happened. Yet. The next morning, the summer festival had begun, and Crunch wanted to go, so we slowly headed on over. But stopped for some breakfast on the way, which ended up being lunch after the long journey to the restaurant. Usually, the party don't start till your sim walks in. But today that wasn't the case, and nobody wanted to go to the festival. So I decided to invite the police officer we'd met yesterday, Lucky Lum. They seemed cool and interesting with their cool aviators and no-nonsense haircut. And they were also single, and didn't find Crunch completely boring, so a potential mate for Mr. Crunch later down the line. Lucky Lum was so nice and listened to Crunch, and shortly became our first friend. Yay! The next morning, Crunch was feeling unlucky due to his unlucky trait. I thought today would be the perfect day to get Crunch a job, because the best place to make new friends is in the workplace. I checked the newspaper, and as funny as it would be to have a sim like Crunch being in the medical profession, I didn't want to be tied down with a real career, so we hopped in the flaming swan boat, headed on down to the salon to join the stylist career. I immediately closed the notifications telling me how to play the stylist career, so I was winging it. We accepted a call on the clock from our new bestie Lucky, which was very unprofessional, but I don't know how to play the stylist career. After we'd taken the call, I decided to give our new boss a makeover, give him a cool new boating co-ord look, because co-ords are always in style. However, upon exiting the styling menu, he was now wearing a cow print suit and some ugly socks and flip-flops. But hey, cow print is in right now. I wish I had a cool cow print suit. Or anything cow print. I just think it's neat. There was nothing to eat at the salon, so Crunch went home, barely doing a day's worth of work. Burnt a mac and cheese, cried about it, and went to bed. The next day, Crunch took 4 hours to get to work. And took so long getting to work that our client was actually in the park when we arrived. This guy, Len, wanted a new haircut according to a reference picture. I didn't understand nor care, so I just gave him the same haircut as Crunch. He seemed to like it, and then we took the worst, most unflattering photo of all time of him to add to our portfolio. Doei! As it took most of the day to get to work, I decided to actually stay for the rest of the shift till 7 p.m, chatting to our boss. We learnt that the hottest place in town was a karaoke bar, so we tried to take him there after work, but he wasn't interested. It was sad, but Crunch understood. The karaoke bar was popping off! There was at least 5 Sims here. 2 of them were singing together, and another one booing them. Singer-entertainer arrived, and Crunch attempted to befriend one of the karaoke girls, but it got real loud and I had major regrets about the whole situation. So I sent Crunch home, where he burnt some pancakes, cried, and went to bed. There appeared to be a pattern. The next day was Leisure Day. Leisure Day? I was relieved as Crunch needed the sleep. Until that was, he wanted to throw a pool party. A hydrophobic, unlucky loser wanting to throw a pool party when it was tipping it down. Let's do it! We got ready, missed the phone call, and broke the bathtub. Invites were sent. The pool booked. We headed on over in an attempt not to be late to our own party. Crunch probably lived too far away, but I'd made my decision. We had barely made it when our only friend Lucky Lum arrived. We schmoozed, mingled. We got invited to a different party. At this party, we made our second friend, Len. We cancelled a conversation with Len to receive a text from Len to remind us about Len's party. Once our party was over and we were at Len's party, I left Crunch to his own devices. And he bored our new friend to death, and we became no longer friends. Back down to 1. We left him to pass out next to his bed, and moved on to making friends with his roommate in a funny hat, who turned out to be a vampire. Being a coward, I thought Crunch would be afraid of him, but it was his technology degree that was the real threat to Crunch. After some more chatting with Len, we soon became friends again. Back to 2. At some point, we'd actually become friends with Ethel, probably at the party, bonding over our hydrophobia. Now we had 3 friends! All of them looked exactly the same. Things were actually going really well. Too well, actually. Perhaps this challenge was too easy. Crunch attempted to get home via the flaming swan boat, but he was too exhausted. I was worried he'd drown like in Sims 4. But he mustered up enough energy to reach the shore and collapse in the surf. He'd never make it home at this rate, so I teleported him back home. I had thought about what I'd said earlier. Perhaps this challenge was too easy. Plus, I was getting annoyed with how far away Crunch lived and how it was taking him forever to get anywhere. So rather than trying to use 10-year-old knowledge, I looked up a YouTube on how to actually place a dock in a non-island neighborhood. His new home was huge and beautiful. I was hoping to have him use it as his primary mode of transportation instead of the flaming swan boat, but where I'd placed it was apparently inaccessible to the rest of the ocean. But it didn't matter as he was now closer to everything. I also changed hydrophobic to inappropriate because as funny as it wasn't doing anything in conversation. I couldn't make a decision on this final trait. Which one was truly the worst trait? Let me know in the comments what you think is the worst trait in all of the Sims games. We headed to work, on time for once. Another mermaid, like our friend Len. She wanted new everyday wear. I tried to give her a cool patterned maxi skirt, but I couldn't decide on a good pattern, so I gave her a sort of boho look. She liked it and I misclicked and took a picture of nothing. Crunch's boss had invited a friend over to the salon, so I thought I'd introduce Crunch to her, and they hit it off straight away. Unfortunately, she was married, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But eventually, we became friends with her, bringing our friend count to 5. It was actually 4. The gossip in The Sims 3 is so unhinged. Of course those two were flirting with one another. They're married! We headed back to the houseboat after a solid day's work, and actually got into bed at a reasonable time for once. Another day of work. And our client, this time, wanted new sleepwear. He was already in his sleepwear when we arrived, which was kind of weird, but I guess he was ready and waiting. I gave him what I thought was super cool sleepwear, but he had other ideas and ran away before we could take unflattering pictures of him for our portfolio. Disheartened from our poor makeover, Crunch went home. I ordered him a pizza, in an attempt to make friends with the pizza delivery girl. Who should be fired? Who holds a pizza box like that? But the pizza took so long to arrive, and once it did arrive, she didn't hang around and left as soon as she could. No new friends were made this day. When I wasn't looking, Crunch messed with his phone and gained the social media skill, so I thought it might be fun for him to have a blog. It was terrible! I like to think it was making your friends look fabulous. And his first post was, "The rumours are true. I'm pretty excited about playing hooky from work." A, you shouldn't blog about that. And B, it was his day off. Because friendships deteriorate so quickly in The Sims 3, I decided to invite my friends Lucky and Len over to our new houseboat. We had some romantic interest in Lucky, but I wasn't sure whether to pursue this just yet. Would we lose her as a friend because it didn't count household members as friends? I wasn't ready to take that risk. Sorry, Lucky. We'll pursue our romantic love interest once we have over 20 friends, or the year is up. I soon realised I'd only given myself a year to make 20 friends, and summer was almost at an end. And we only had 4 friends. So I abandoned our friends and headed to our previous client's house to force her to be Crunch's friend. Upon becoming friends with her, bringing our friendship count to actually 5, I scanned the house for an unsuspecting victim to be friends with. And found a sauna! I think the sauna came with the Sunlit Tides neighbourhood, and I thought Crunch would change into a towel. He did not. I tried to invite our new friend into the sauna, but there was no invite option. Turned out our friend was actually our boss's wife. I don't know what happened to our previous boss, Keanu. I guess he got reset when Crunch moved, like his wants and needs. Isadora showed up at their house, just like she had at the salon. I think something's going on with Isadora and this lady's husband. Crunch intervened to prevent this, until I thought, wait, I'm already friends with her, let's not waste any more time. At this stage, I changed inappropriate to grumpy, which denied Crunch from any friendly interactions, like friendly hug or even compliments. Instead of crying when Crunch burnt food, he now screamed. But Sims 3 Sims love a good scream. Crunch had another day off, and after posting another awkward blog post, he stated he wanted to change careers, but this wasn't happening. I figured out how to get the boat back to port, as boats heading in and out really annoyed me. Crunch gained 5 followers from this awkward blog post, and I can confirm the amount of subscribers does flash up in front of my eyes when I gain subscribers. Why not block my vision by subscribing today? I hadn't noticed, but we were already in day 2 of autumn. The pumpkin spice lattes were already on sale in Starbucks. The park had set the festival off, so we were headed on over and spotted a celebrity. They're worth like 5 friends. Crunch was so desperate to be friends with this celebrity that we rejected a call from poor Lucky. I didn't think we'd get anywhere with the celebrity, but with our social networking skill, stylist career, and wealth, she actually became interested, and soon became fast friends. She had a lot of positive traits that I liked, but she was in a relationship, but that didn't mean we couldn't take her out for a meal. Crunch was now a 1-star celebrity, which is something I hadn't anticipated in this playthrough. But it's The Sims 3, you never know what's going to happen. And we could make friends with the paparazzi that followed us around everywhere we went. Outside the restaurant, there were Sims ready to befriend. I started to get to know one of them, who, despite having a university degree, was actually a teen. I panicked and thought Crunch befriending a teen was weird, so I moved on to Pearl, who was just our type. And single. However, it was late, so we set some groundwork of friendship and would come back when it wasn't so late at night. The next morning, I decided our new boss had been ignored for too long. Today was the day we would be friends with him. And the first thing we did was greet him and listen to his story. Crunch hated it, but we were already friends with his wife, so we had to try and be friends with the whole family. I gave up in this conversation to actually let Crunch do some work today. Turns out the sickly man who had just entered the salon a moment ago was Crunch's client and a vampire. Crunch wanted to meet a vampire. What luck! Perhaps this man will be more willing to be our friend than our boss. The secrets Crunch shares about himself are really boring. The vampire man wanted new formal wear, and being a police officer, he had a few clothing choices unlocked. But this one gave real Scott Shelby vibes from Heavy Rain. I wanted to lean into the vampire thing he had going on, so I gave him a tuxedo and a top hat with red accents. He did not like it. I guess he was trying to hide his vampire-ness. But no matter, Crunch still got the picture for his portfolio, and I thought he looked great. The stylist career means nothing, just to make the Sims look how you want to look. Keanu, our previous boss, was one of the Sims we had the highest friendship with, who wasn't our friend yet. Yet he didn't want to hang out at our house. I tried going to his house, but he was out. So we went to the vampire's house instead, despite being exhausted. Friendship was far too important. We were only a fourth of the way to our aspiration goal, and only 5 days until winter. We didn't have time for trivial things like sleeping! The vampire guy was also too obsessed with drinking his plasma juice to chat. Isadora invited us on a date, however. As said before, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so we took our chance. We slow danced in the rain, and she stepped on Crunch's toes repeatedly, but it was romantic. Kinda. I tried to use Isadora to make friends with her husband by having Isadora tell her husband how cool Crunch was, but she was having none of it. Crunch lost friendship with 2 of his friends, and it was time to start texting and calling them. We skipped work that day and began texting and calling every Sim we knew to keep their friendship up. And I'd gotten a hot tub he'd wanted the night before. I figured I would be friends with someone with a hot tub, so we could all sit in it like a weird friendship soup. Nothing like sitting in a moist tub with strangers. They all, surprisingly, did want to get into the hot tub, despite there being torrential rain and being 11 degrees Celsius. 58 Fahrenheit for all my American viewers, but not before some good old-fashioned screaming. Keanu wanted to come over this time, thanks to my sweet, sweet hot tub, but it wasn't enough to persuade the vampire. Unfortunately, when he arrived, he claimed there was too many people and ran home, which I understand, but I needed the friendship. It's magic. Crunch's guests stayed way too long into the night, messing with the guitar and sleeping in my lawn chairs, like they were doing some sort of homeless mermaid challenge. They complained that they were hungry, like it was my fault. So I fixed them some pancakes. Crunch wanted to throw a feast party, but we were basically already having a feast party. Crunch headed to the park to escape his friends. They didn't have to go home, but they could not stay here. We got to the park far too early, and not even the vendors were here yet. We waited for anybody to show, but no one did. It was raining, but it was spooky day. Sims, don't let a little rain ruin your day. A smartly dressed man named Rudolph arrived, but he had the high ground, I guess. So I invited Pearl to the park, only for them when she arrived to be invited to a party with the vampire guy. So I abandoned poor Pearl at the park and headed to the costume party. Crunch showed up dressed as a police officer, which is weird as the host was a police officer. We greeted as many people as we could, got to work on making friends with the vampire guy. You'd think we'd learn his name, but it wasn't important. He was also burning up, but it was fine. He was from the Twilight vampire era, so he was just gonna sparkle. He had the skin of a killer. We returned home to a broken TV. Thanks, friends. Crunch woke the next morning with the out of sorts moodlet, and I expected a scream. Huh, no scream, surprisingly. I never choose these traits, so I've never seen this moodlet before. It was now becoming a daily occurrence to call every friend that we had to make sure to maintain friendship with them.
2 hours later.
We actually went into work today, and Isadora felt pity for us, wanting a makeover, saying her makeup was looking tired and old. Homegirl wasn't even wearing makeup, so this was definitely a pity appointment. And being her toy boy side piece, she'd put in a good word for us and gotten Crunch a promotion, despite being awful at his job. We went home after spending the day splashing in puddles and went to bed, but not before calling a few more people, because that was our life now. As the next morning was identical to the previous morning. Get up, eat, call everyone, head to the salon. The only difference was being invited to a party that night. With only 2 guests, including Crunch. Could that really be considered a party? Things had to change. The next day, I tried the hot tub method again. Got a few new fun activities for the houseboat. But the issue was the limited conversation topics. There had to be an easier way. It was quite possibly time to have Crunch's awkward blog post come true and change careers. Before I made him a stylist, it was a tie between stylist and lifeguard. This would have been funnier with his hydrophobic trait still active, but that ship has sailed. My thought process was that Sims would gain friendship from a man who just saved their life. How wrong I was. Our first day of a lifeguard was uneventful. As expected in the middle of winter and during a blizzard, Crunch almost froze to death, so he was off to a great first day. But him freezing to death put a real damper on the party he was invited to that night. So we headed home and went to bed. So far, we'd only befriended humans, mermaids, and vampires, because I didn't have Supernatural installed. But that all changed that night, when an alien showed up. Crunch screamed at the alien, because I'd woken him up to go greet the alien. Crunch's scream scared him off. Time was running out, being already a few days into winter. But I decided it was best to have Crunch work on himself on his day off today. Finally fixing the shower, working out with the workout equipment I got him, and practicing charisma with the mirror I gotten him a few days back. Working on charisma is something I should have done from the start, but better late than never. I had forgotten that in The Sims 3, friendships and relationships were required to gain the charisma skill. Soon I discovered celebrities were more inclined to be friends with other celebrities and become friends much faster than regular, non-famous Sims. The common folk. Shallow, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I decided to focus all of Crunch's time and energy on befriending celebrities. On the night of Snowflake Day Eve, a lady invited us on a date after work. We actually invited her out. I just completely forgot what happened, apparently. Sure, we were already seeing 2 other women, but Crunch was not a committed man. And it was a friendship date, as was the sleepover, and sleeping in the same bed. This was all for friendship. Snowflake Day rolled around, whilst our new friend was still there. Just leave, people! Snowflake Day is where we talk about how sensitive we are. I mean, exchange gifts. And Crunch wanted to throw a gift-giving party. I had to clear the room of all furniture for some reason so people could exchange gifts. The poor maid still had to work on Snowflake Day, and she also had to tidy up the food that my guests had brought over as well. She didn't get a gift. Nah, she got the best gift of them all. Paid. And an autograph from that guy, apparently. But once the party was underway, and the guests were here, everyone had a good time. Focused Crunch's energy on a man who was also a celebrity. I focused so much time on him that I nearly missed the main part of the party, the gift-giving part. Because of that, Crunch did not get a present. But focusing all our energy on one man was actually the correct thing to do. After the gift-giving party, I cracked it. Parties are the ideal way to get friendship with lots of people quickly, even if we didn't interact with them. So, whenever Crunch wasn't at work, pretending to be a lifeguard, at this stage his job was essentially just beach, we'd throw a party. Whenever we weren't already at a party that somebody else invited us to, Crunch was quite the socialite and focused all our attention on just one person. And once everybody left, they'd all leave with more relationship with Crunch than when they started. Some even becoming friends, just happy to be invited. And thanks to having some charisma skill now, charming introduction made friendship go up much faster than before. He still only had the handful of social interactions, but getting over the first hurdle was much easier, and Sims weren't as bored with Crunch as they were before. Crunch came home from that night's party with 2 new friends and went to bed with the total of 15. So close to our goal. Crunch threw yet another party the next morning and invited the alien again. He will be Crunch's friend. He left, but no matter. After this party, we gained the 20 friends for Crunch's lifetime goal. I could have ended it here, but I wanted as many friends for Crunch as possible. Again, as an introvert, this seems exhausting. Crunch now had enough lifetime points for a mildly decent reward. I was torn between long distance friend and my best friend. Long distance friend meant friendships no longer decayed. However, this was obsolete because of the charisma skill challenge. This meant after gaining 20 friends, friendships never decayed anyway. So what was the point? So I chose my best friend. A Simbot joins your household as your best friend. This was a mistake. This robot was horrible. It needed scrap to eat. I forced it to sleep in a sleeping bag on the living room floor. Take a good look at it now, as I hated looking at it. Most of Crunch's friends were celebrities. Even the robot was a celebrity. And as a result of this, Crunch's celebrity status was rising. The downside was a break-in one night. The robot was out eating scrap at the dump, so another reason to hate it. The burglar was more likely to do with Crunch's unlucky trait, but this was the first time, so I don't think the celebrity status was not involved. Fortunately, the burglar was caught and Crunch now knew 2 new Sims to invite to tomorrow's party. The police officer was not our friend, Lucky Lum. Crunch spoke to both parties at the break-in about the break-in and asked both of them what they did for a living. Because I thought that was funny. It was becoming increasingly clear I needed to finish this challenge. Not because it was spring, or because this video had been going on for ages, but because the game was starting to get weird. Crunch's last friend was the final boss of friendship. A 5-star celebrity. She had a little thing for Crunch, because she was an older lady and they all seemed to have a thing for Crunch. But that didn't make befriending her any easier. But befriending her did mean Crunch's celebrity level went up to level 4. This unlocked the limousine instead of the taxi, something I had never unlocked before. Crunch was even invited to a celebrity party hosted by her.
Oh, look at me!
After the celebrity party, we had one more goal to achieve before the year was up. Declare Crunch's true love. But to who? Not the robot! Maybe Lucky? No. When was Lucky truly there for Crunch? No. Isadora. She was always there for Crunch. Getting him promotions. Asking him on dates. Being with him on those long, cold shifts at the beach. Apparently she was never at the beach, but neither was Lucky. She was always there for Crunch, and deserved his love. Once the rushed engagement was done, the wedding ceremony was to be held at their first and only date location. With all their friends, at least most of them. I guess her husband died at some point. We invited Lucky because I thought it'd be funny. She attempted to ruin the wedding, but Crunch's and Isadora's love was too strong, and she mysteriously died. I killed her in an attempt for Crunch to befriend the Grim Reaper, but he doesn't hang about in The Sims 3 apparently. But with that, our challenge was over. Over the course of the year, Crunch made many new friends, had lots of parties, learnt new skills, and found true love. Crunch finished the challenge with a whopping 34 friends. It would have been 35, but yeah. Provided you are in the driver's seat of the conversation, this challenge is actually pretty easy, but the moment the sim takes control, it can go down pretty quickly, given their terrible personality. I enjoyed this challenge. It was fun trying to make as many friends as possible, whilst maintaining ones we already had. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. At the start it was, but I got the hang of it. But who says a challenge has to be hard? As long as I had fun, and with my storytelling and charisma, I forced you all to enjoy my challenge, and made it seem more interesting, and that's what it's all about. I appreciate all your patience. These videos take a long time, and I did not expect this one to take this long. But I want them to be as good as possible, so you can enjoy them. As of this video, we are very close to 500 subscribers. So if you enjoyed this video, why not like it, or even subscribe? And why not check out some of my previous content if you're new? But for now, I have to play some Disney Lorcana. This is not sponsored, I just super love that card game. Goodbye!